It's Meltdown Tuesday, and we're going to talk about the NBA Finals. Congratulations, Cleveland. You did it. 52 years, and the curse is dead. The drought is done. The Cavaliers, for the first time in the franchise's history, winning an NBA title. And we're not going to make fun of the city of Cleveland here because it's a great city, and we don't take shots like that on Meltdown Tuesday. Moving forward, we now look at the big picture, and right now you get all these hot takes from all over the landscape about LeBron James and Steph Curry and the Golden State Warriors and what it all means. And we'll give you what the reality of what it all means. For Stephen Curry, you know what it means? He's not as good as LeBron James. But that's not a hot take. That's not news for anybody who watches basketball consistently. He is one of the greatest shooters of his generation, if not the greatest, perhaps even one of the greatest shooters of all time. He's on a par shooting-wise with the Jerry West, or Reggie Miller, or Ray Allen, a guy who every time the ball leaves his fingertips, you think it's going in. And that's the highest compliment you can give for a shooter. But he's not the assist guy, or the rebound guy, or the block guy, or the defensive player that LeBron James is. Maybe he will become that, but likely he won't. That's not his game. He's the guy who can pull up from 30 feet and let it rip, and it's about as likely to go in as somebody hitting a 10-footer. That's the kind of shooter we're talking about, and that's a generational talent. There's nothing wrong with Steph Curry. You're going to hear all this talk about, well, is he really elite? Did we misjudge him? No, nobody misjudged him. When you win 2 MVP trophies in a row and a championship, you're a pretty damn good player. You don't need any more validation. Yes, he's surrounded by very good talent. Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, Harrison Barnes, on down the line. But Curry is the star of the show with Golden State, and for good reason. Yes, he played poorly in the finals. He would be the first one to tell you that. But the idea that somehow we don't know who Steph Curry is as a basketball player is ludicrous. He is a great player who had a very bad series at a very bad time. Moving on to somebody who's the complete opposite of that, LeBron James. James has been all kinds of bad in some of his finals appearances, 6 of them to be exact, 2 and 4, up until beating the Warriors this year. And James got criticized, and rightfully so, sometimes by myself, for not being the clutch guy that his team needed him to be. He would brick shots. He was tentative at times. That series against the Mavericks was always something that people are going to look back and judge him by. He should have been better. He knows it. Everybody who watches basketball knows it. He failed, and his teams failed because of him, and sometimes they won in spite of him, like the time that the Heat beat the Spurs. But this time LeBron James showed why he's one of the greatest players of all time. And that gets us to another hot take going around right now, that somehow this makes LeBron one of the greatest of all time. Or does it make LeBron one of the greatest of all time? No, it doesn't. He's been one of the greatest of all time for years. He is a transcendent figure. He is by far the best player we've seen since Michael Jordan. Kobe Bryant does not hold a candle to LeBron James. It is not close, and it never will be for anybody who really understands the sport. LeBron now has 3 titles, but this title is the one that history will always remember him for. This is his iconic moment. This is something that people will look back in 30 years and say, remember the time. And we will remember the time. We'll remember the 41 points in Game 5 and the 41 points in Game 6 and the triple-double in Game 7, becoming only the 3rd player ever to have a triple-double in Game 7 of the NBA Finals. He led Cleveland back from a 3-1 series deficit, something that had never happened before in the finals, and yet he did it with considerable ease. The Warriors now have to take on the brunt of disappointment, and that gets us to our last hot take. What are the Warriors? What is to become of them? You know what becomes of them? They were a great team. They were an all-time team, poised to be maybe the all-time team, and they failed miserably. They were up 3-1 with 2 games on their home court. It was all set up. They had only lost 2 home games all regular season, and yet they lost 2 home games with a chance to clinch their 2nd consecutive NBA championship. This team was going to be dynastic, and now it is just disappointment and depression. Cleveland was able to rise to the occasion. Golden State was not, and Golden State was bad throughout the playoffs. The first round aside, it was a struggle and a slog for a Warriors team that everybody thought would cruise through the playoffs. The Trailblazers gave the Warriors some problems. The Thunder might have been the better team over the stretch of the 7-game series, but the Warriors bailed themselves out with some great three-point shooting in the second half of Game 7. And then in the finals, when everybody thought the Cavaliers were dead and buried, the Cavaliers came back and the Warriors fell apart. So ultimately, how do we remember the Warriors? We don't remember the Warriors. We remember 73-9. And we remember last year when they won a title, the first one in franchise's history since 1975. But we don't remember this team as anything more than a speed bump in history. We will remember the Warriors in the Andre Iguodala block when LeBron James pinned it to the glass. That's what we'll remember about the Warriors. We'll remember how could they, what could have happened, what did happen. And what happened was the Cleveland Cavaliers won their first championship since 1970. LeBron James got the moment that will forever be etched on his NBA tombstone, and the Golden State Warriors end up being the greatest team that never was.